wait a little bit for Jane. I don't know if she's around. She's usually very punctual and comes, but I created this little email. I'm in the room for tree board. See if that would give her a place to give us a holler if she's having problems. But we can always, just get started if she's not here and shortly and fill her in on what we got. Janice, thank you. Janice Brown, thank you for the links.
Oh, you're welcome. I just did a little research the hour before the meeting, so I know you wouldn't have time to read them, but we can.
It's in the filing system now. I saved the emails to the tree board file in the email section, and the one I sent you guys was a seminar I attended probably 3 years ago here at the library in town, and this man from South Bend who's an expert, on trees. And he gave this really great lecture, and I contacted him and asked him if he could send me this document that I forwarded to you guys. And I don't know that much really about trees other than I love them. Okay, I admitted it. But what I learned just scanning that little article that I sent is how interconnected everything is. For example, there's a butterfly whose larva has adapted and evolved only to live on a hackberry tree. So if we cut down all the hackberry trees, this butterfly goes extinct. Yeah. I mean, and if the insects go extinct, the birds go extinct. And we do need the insects as pollinators. So that little article that not little, it's 48 pages. Yeah. It's really a reference. It's a reference article with information, but we can look up each tree. We'll look at Janice's list, and we'll eventually make a user-friendly list that people can scroll down. But the article from South Bend explains, well, this tree isn't environmental, it's not ecological, it's not evolutionarily connected to anything. And, that's interesting to know. Because, most people are like, let's do some cherry blossoms, from China. And, they're trees, they're beautiful, but they're not helping out other parts of the ecology. So,
I just learned from one of the articles. I was quickly clicking on the links. I didn't read all the lists in depth, but I learned from one of the articles that Janice sent is that the Star of Bethlehem is not only invasive, that we should, Beverly Shores are rolling in my right? And I go, when we bought this house 30 years ago, there were Star of Bethlehem, they don't get really tall, but they were on our property, and there's still one out there. And I'm going, wait, I had no idea. They're pretty ugly, but I didn't know that they were dangerous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In what way? Jan, what way are they? Both, Janet, how are they dangerous? I don't know.
As I understood it, just from quickly looking at it.
Here's Jane.
Okay. They are, they're invasive and they will crowd out other non-invasive species.
Right. And so I'm on the Shirley Hine Land Trust board.
Yeah.
And we are adamant about removing the Tree of Bethlehem, Tree of Paradise, Tree of Heaven, it has a lot of names, but it is crowding out some of the almost extinct natives that exist in some of the areas in Gary around the national parks. We have some properties there, and we're really trying to educate people that all of this biodiversity that we have that you can't find anywhere in the world is getting crowded out by these darn Tree of Heavens. So we own property there along Beverly Shores at the Great Swamp. That's all Shirley Hine's property. And every spring and fall, they go in and get any of the seeds because they're so prolific. You see the seed pods everywhere. I see them in my yard. I'm constantly picking them out. And the other thing is that you cannot just cut down a Tree of Heaven. because the roots live on and they go underground and they'll propagate a new tree, maybe 5 feet, but it's from that root of the one you cut down. So what you have to do, if you do cut it down and you don't get the roots out, there's a chemical that they drill a hole in the stump, and then they put that chemical in to kill the roots out so that it completes it. And I didn't know that. We had some tree of heavens removed on our property, and actually it wasn't Christian. Who's the other tree man? He cut them down. I thought he would have known better, but I guess he didn't know about it, or you have to ask. But he cut them down, and then I had more tree of heavens than ever before. And then I read that article about they spread through the roots, even though you think the tree is dead.
What chemical do you put on the roots?
I can't remember. I would have to go and read.
But there is one. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
It's a powder and a liquid.
As I looked at the lists, both I had gone on the DNR list myself, and then I looked at the article Annabelle sent, and then just quickly the lists are so detailed and there's so much information. I think it's going to take us a little bit of work to make these recommendations. Recommending native trees for planting and recommending, which is all we can do, these kind of non-native and invasive species be removed. And I was also surprised to learn some of them, including the Star of Heaven or Star of Bethlehem tree, is actually prohibited by statute.
Yes.
Oh, really?
I put that link in at the very bottom.
There are some of these trees that it's against the law to plant them. Right? So we have a lot of educating ourselves over those that are against the law to plant, those that are just frowned upon and suggested against, and those that we suggest should be planted. That's going to take a little bit of effort, much more effort than I thought.
Well, hi, Jane. By the way, welcome.
Hi.
Hi,
Jane. Late. I was at another meeting, but I just ran in.
Thank you.
Is Ellen with us?
No, Ellen's off today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She sent an email a while ago, so we were aware of that. Let me do one thing. We have the exciting ordinance. We're kind of going to plow through that just a little bit at each meeting. But let me ask Janice Brown while she's here. Let's talk about the tulip tree, which is not an invasive, is the state tree of Indiana, and is good for the environment.
Yes.
And you got a price on it a while ago. And then I think where we kind of stopped was you were going to look into people that could plant it.
Mm-hmm. And
what did you find?
So in Chesterton Feed and Garden, they do not do planting. So they gave me a recommendation. David's in, I think it's somewhere between Valpo and Chesterton. They never called me back. I called the Chesterton Feed and Garden the last time, and sorry I couldn't get back onto the Zoom the last meeting. It was very late though, so you were probably finished. She said it's too late to plant now, but we can get a nice big size like we talked about. She said those trees will be available in the spring. She was very disappointed that David's didn't call me back. And so she was going to work that issue to see if they would plant it. Now, my question to you is if we need to find someone to plant it. I really don't know tree planters, in the area. I don't know if Christian does that or if Tree Man does that or if that's a completely different.
Well, we have, this is Jan Roberts, we have purchased small trees because we did lose 2 of our large oak trees. One the country club cut down, and one when we bought the house had been struck by lightning, and the tree man told us it would last 3 years, and 17 years later it finally had to be taken down. But Christian brought us in 2 oak saplings, one white and one black, I think, and also a maple tree. So I know Christian plants them. We had him.
Okay.
well, but since we know where we're going to buy it, and if Chesterton Feed and Garden will deliver it, I think we can ask Christian whether he would come out and actually plant it and feed it and advise us on the proper care of a new tulip tree.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And, we're going to need advice on exactly where to plant the thing too, because the last tree that we took down has got to be like root systems and all that. And then we got to make sure that there's no, plummet lines or, that kind of thing. Holy moly comes out, and make sure we're not going to be digging into some gas line. But, so we have to do a little, but we have time. And what we'll eventually need to do is get kind of a price. And then I guess we have to go to the town council and ask for the funds or approval of the funds. So that's the way I think it'll proceed. Yes, Jane.
I just have one comment to make. It has been my experience that where you're buying the tree, do not plant the trees, correct?
Correct.
Do they guarantee the tree?
Yes, if we have to follow their procedure for planting and for taking care of it. So,
because you buy from a nursery and they don't plant it, they do not guarantee the plant. So whoever is going to plant the tree, will we get a guarantee from them? And it's just a year guarantee. It's not a lifelong.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's something to think about.
Yeah, I'll ask. And would you like me to ask Christian and Tree Man to quote the planting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. And that's a good point, Jane, because I didn't know you could get a guarantee for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
But only by the person who plants it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we bought a bunch of trees years ago. Even though there's quite a bit of space in front, there really isn't, because there's lines and stuff. And I got to tell you, for two amateurs, we didn't know what we were doing. And we've got a couple of river birches, white birches, red buds, pine trees, a maple that was native to the backyard. I replanted that little guy, and he or she was sick and had these little beads on the leaves, and people said get muriatic acid and spray it, and I did like once or twice. But guess what? It survived. It got rid of that whatever fungus it had years ago, and it's a nice, good-sized maple tree in front. We've got a white pine we're very proud of, because the mama white pine is on the halfway down the property on the border to the alley, which is a green belt here. And mama is about 8 stories tall, and Junior is now about 4 stories tall. It just grew naturally from the pine tree. So, this isn't exactly like an arboretum or anything, but plants we kill, flowers go belly up. But we've had good luck with trees. So I'm hoping this is a good area for trees, and with some expertise and some tender care, the tulip tree will have a happy life. So yes, Janice Brown, if you'd be kind enough to get some ideas from Christian and Tree Man, and I guess they're not going to come out and water them. And that is kind of a problem.
No, in fact, I just coordinated the planting of a Korean dogwood for the Beach Garden Club. And I don't know if you've seen it. It's in the Dennis Kelly section of the gardens right along Oriole Trail. It was beautiful in the fall. It was just a blazing burgundy. But I took care of that tree, and we got it from Beachside Garden, and I had to water it every day for 2 weeks, in the morning and the evening. then every
Oh.
other day and that was a fall planting, and fall is much easier to care for a tree that gets planted because nature kind of starts raining, and you
Yeah.
know, we're in the springtime and the summer, it's a lot of work. So and I have these bags that you use to fill with water. They're professionals, what professional landscapers use. Unfortunately, we couldn't use that on that tree because the limbs are so low to the ground. But the tulip tree would have a trunk, and then that makes it much easier to do.
So there's a way to transport water to the tree.
There are I know where all the spigots are in the park. So we have quite a bit of hose, and yeah,
Good.
we would be able to water them. Yeah,
Excellent.
So I'm trained, but I would love sharing and the caring.
Yeah. No, we have to like have a bucket brigade. That's great. So that's the tulip tree.
Yeah.
I'm just going off the top of my head from my agenda. Then the next thing is, if you guys can tolerate another meeting reading the ordinance, I do have a paper copy this time, so I can look at it, because the last time I couldn't get off the screen to go back to my files. And I just want to go over section 4. I don't think we did we? Jane, you were...
I don't remember going over any of the tree ordinance.
Okay. Well...
Unless I missed last month, did I miss last month's meeting?
I think you did.
Okay.
What I remember, Jane, maybe you will... We had Ellen read it.
Right.
I said, would somebody read it out loud? And Ellen volunteered, and we jumped at it rather than my croaky voice.
All right. Would it be okay if I ask a couple questions, though, about the part that I missed? If I
missed as well.
Okay.
Okay, it's page 1.
Right. No, I heard the part about the purposes. I remember Ellen reading that. But I had a question under section 2. Has that been amended? Because I still have a copy that said draft, and I understood that the only thing that was changed was striking the word draft.
You know, I asked Dr. LeMay about the wording draft to make sure, because that is what is posted or was posted last meeting, and he said that is the final version.
Right. Well, and the first paragraph of section 2, it of course refers to us. The responsibilities of the tree board shall be entrusted to the Long Beach Land Conservation Committee. And my suggestion is that as we consider possible suggestions in the future, I'm not suggesting we ask them to end it right away, but that should be noted, that we clarify and correct that, since the Land Conservation Committee no longer exists.
Right.
And let's see, in section 3, the term of the member of the Long Beach Tree Board shall coincide with the town council changes. We should be aware and keep on our event horizon that I believe the town council is considering staggered elections. And if they do, then we will have to ask that section 3 be amended in some fashion, because it doesn't say coincide with which town council members are being voted up or down. And
Janice, you know what I'm going to tell you? Here's what I'm going to say. Take the long view, and whoever town council has the farthest election out. Here's what I'm saying. I had it originally, it was the board shall be annual. 1, to get people to volunteer for things is hard. And 2, one of the worst things is you get a good committee working together like we are, and there's discontinuity. You know, so getting new people in isn't necessarily the best thing in the world. I would just say it should coincide with the term of the longer of the 2 town council appointments, blah, blah, blah.
And it's not something we need to amend today. right? I
No.
said and thought we need to be aware that that could be a place where we may have to consider rewording it. And
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, make a note of that in our minutes, if you don't mind. Just say section 3 clarification regarding terms of the board and which town council election it would be linked to. And, because like I said, to start a committee, get it running, get projects going, and then having, new town council come in and name people. And I don't mind if there were people out there lining up, but
and I'm thinking, will we be ousted depending on who's elected?
I was looking at it going, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to pick me off.
I'm going to propose saying the term shall be as long as we feel like it.
I do have something on page 1. Oh, I'm sorry, Jane, go ahead.
Well, let's go back to Janice's first remark regarding the responsibilities of the Long Beach Land Conservation Committee. As I understood it, Doctor, that you said last meeting that any amendments are not entrusted to us, that this is the tree board ordinance and that we are not about amending it. We are about reading it and understanding it.
Well, I thought before we make amendments, we should, as a group, because we're all new and the ordinance is very new, we should at least go through it once to get an overview. And then as we go through now, like Janice just did, Janice Roberts, make a note in our minutes that we could go back to later and say, oh yeah, these are the things that we are going to recommend to the town council to consider amending. But at this point, to open the door to more amendments and, going back to the town council, I'm just happy we got this far and they gave a final version, because that took years.
Okay, just so I understand.
Yeah, I mean,
we are really not. We're just.
Yeah, we're not going to go back to the town council with anything at this point. We want to get our feet on the ground and, like I said, kind of get an overview of what this is all about. And this is a good time to talk about it, ask questions, make suggestions, and then we'll come back at some point and say, hey, we need to clean up the ordinances. I do think we have a duty to make recommendations. That comes up.
Specified in section 4.
Yeah, that's what I want to get through today.
Right.
That's right. So we do have a duty to update the ordinance, but, like I said, we're just getting our feet on the ground. And so we want to kind of keep a low profile. So if you guys don't mind, let me go through section 4.
Before we do that, I have something on page 1, which is under G. When I found out about the legalities of trees and plants in the state of Indiana, G says discourage the planting of exotics. My suggestion would be we use prohibit, because there is an official list of trees that should not be planted, exchanged, traded, etc. So,
you know what? That's a good point. And here's what I heard you saying is discouraging is one thing, but there are actually state ordinances about what can be planted. So we could add that, discourage the planting of exotics and invasives, or prohibit them as consistent with Indiana DNR, whatever statute, code, or law. So work both in, because not every tree, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, not every tree is like prohibited by law, but if there are some that are, they're not discretionary.
That is, as I read it, Annabelle, for example, the Norway maple, which I just love, is discouraged in this area. And it's a beautiful tree, But for example, the Star of Bethlehem or Star of Heaven is actually prohibited by statute. So I think part of our future work will be to identify those that are prohibited and let the town, the residents know that there are certain things that are prohibited by law for them to plant. And I don't think there's a lot, but there are other invasive species that are actually discouraged by the DNR, and Long Beach has adopted that list of recommendations that we will also discourage those things. Right?
Let me clarify this also, because now we're bringing up some good points. We have, let me phrase it as a question. Do you see us as having any authority over what people plant on their property versus this only applies to if someone wants to plant on the public portion of land?
I can answer that from my Shirley Hines
Sure.
experience.
I do not see that we have any authority to prevent people planting species on their property.
Okay.
If it's illegal in the state of Indiana, yes, we would have the authority to report that, and the state will come and
Yes.
take care of it. But
Right.
we wouldn't. But we would. I would think
We
our
cannot-
group.
We have no enforcement measure.
No,
Right.
we
No.
would have a responsibility to say to the state, we are aware of this illegal tree.
And the reason for that is because these exotic trees have a tendency to spread.
Major problem. I don't really think the people that live in Long Beach, Indiana, are looking to plant exotic trees.
I don't think they're aware of what some of them are.
I'm missing. Is there a cult here that is looking to do that?
A cult.
You know,
I mean, we're spending a lot of time talking about exotic and
Well, not
it's-
invasive.
And I
They aren't
don't.
exotic.
I'm sorry?
Invasive.
They aren't exotic trees. For instance, the Bradford pear, there was just an article in the New York Times. It was once considered the tree that was the boulevard tree, and now that we have found that it is so invasive, cities are going in and spending millions of dollars to cut them out and make sure they don't get in.
I don't think it's a bad idea to do a list of non-preferential trees because of their invasiveness and species. But we're spending way too much time talking about this because I don't think we have a big influx of people.
Well, we're just. I think we're just. That's what we're doing here is going over this and refining it. So I'd rather do it now while it's on our mind. For example, this Tree of Heaven thing, and get it clarified and polished up while we're working on it.
Well, who's in charge of coming up with this list of exotic and invasive trees?
Well,
It's the state of Indiana.
Can I just-
Well, okay, so it exists somewhere, and it can just be published, correct?
No, I'm sorry, but under section 5, it says the tree board shall also create a list of exotic or non-native trees unsuitable for planting. Now, it doesn't tell us where to get that information. It says that it should be attached.
That's a great idea, Janice. I really am not opposed to it, but we're spending way too much time talking about it when it's
Okay.
not an issue right now.
Well,
Yeah.
we want to be prepared.
I think section is just fine in its entirety.
Okay, what do you want to talk about, Jane?
Board.
All right, I'm okay with talking about it because that's what we're doing right now. That's why I'm here, not doing other things that I could be doing.
I think there are important things to talk about,
Like what?
like how many trees we have now that need to be
Cut down?
about removal, that are in the right of way, that are that we should start to clean up Long Beach and make it beautiful again.
Okay, let's stay on track with this, Jane, because that will come up about what you were just saying. But let's finish what we're doing. And, you know, there's only so much time, so many of us here today, and we have an agenda, and I'd like to follow it. And the agenda today was to go over the tree ordinance further.
Yeah, but to go over the tree ordinance in its entirety, not just talk about invasive and exotic trees.
Well, I was taking it back to page 1 because that is a really important point about discourage is different than prohibit, and both words need to be it
And it's also
because of the state laws.
And it's
what's
also
important is
also our duty to create a list of exotic or I suppose that's a typo, non-invasive trees.
I totally agree.
Okay, let's just finish it. We're wasting more time discussing that we shouldn't be discussing it than we are discussing it. We could be done with this and moving along. Let's just finish what we're doing. Point of order, okay? Please. You know, we're burning daylight here. So
we are.
Yeah, we are. And you keep repeating this. So if we could kindly get on with discussing a final language here that we're going to recommend. So for, where is that? G, excuse me, discourage the planting of exotics and invasive species. We're going to add language to that will include a reference to Indiana code based on the DNR.
Well, there's other language that I would like to include in this tree ordinance also.
Okay, is it part of where we are today?
It's on the first page.
Okay, go ahead.
A, promote and enhance the beauty of the town of Long Beach, Indiana through tree preservation. I would like to add and/or removal.
Okay.
Preservation and/or
That's
removal.
interesting.
And landscaping.
And why are we removing trees?
Because it's time for them to be removed. There are too many of them.
There are too many trees.
Correct.
Okay, I disagree. But
Well, I agree, and I.
all right, so the way it works,
I'm not going to disagree with your opinion, but my opinion is that there are way too many trees in the public right of way, in the public.
All right, we're back to the public right of way and you know, hazard. Let's just, you know, let's put it this way.
So we're only going to correct the verbiage that you think should be changed.
No, let me finish my sentence, Mrs. Kroll. Let me finish my sentence. The sentence that I would like to say is when you, through preserving and landscaping, you would like to put language in there about removing trees. And I think that would be something that we as a committee could then vote on.
Well, I agree. It would be beneficial.
So would you like to make a motion that we add your language to A?
I would.
Okay. Please state your motion clearly.
I would like to make a motion to add language to A that the enhance the beauty of the town of Long Beach, Indiana through tree preservation and/or removal and landscaping.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Are you done with your motion?
I am. Do I have a second?
No, you're not running the meeting. What the next thing is, I offer discussion on your motion, then we take a vote.
Usually you have a second before you offer discussion.
No, we're gonna have a discussion on it, and then we're gonna see if we second it, and because we want to get the final language. Is there any discussion on this? If not, then I'll entertain a motion for second.
I only have a comment. I don't want to prolong the discussion, but I'm not sure how Jane's motion to add the language regarding the removal of trees is consistent with the ordinance, section 1E, recognizing that trees are a significant part of the town of Long Beach's general infrastructure and ability to attract businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we are to pass a motion that includes the removal of trees, I would say then the town council would also have to be asked to modify section E, that trees or the lack thereof are a significant part of the town's infrastructure. That's my only comment, and I don't want to argue with it. It is my belief that for the sake of consistency, the town council meant to encourage healthy trees and healthy development of tree replacement when some are removed because of age or disease or injury from lightning. And if they meant to suggest that we should be about removing trees, it could have been included at the time. And so I only say if you're going to change A, you're going to have to change E and ask the town council if they also wanted to envision the removal of trees because we have too many.
No.
We have too many.
I don't think you said.
You misunderstand, Janice. I do not want the removal of trees just because there are too many. I want the removal of trees for everything you stated: disease, age,
That's already in here.
That is already in there.
That's already in here, Jane.
Where?
Read it.
You have to read the whole ordinance. There's paragraphs.
That's why we're going through it.
Right.
We're trying to.
There's all kinds of paragraphs about nuisances, if a tree is a nuisance, or the tree has the potential to injure people, if they're diseased. I think it's all covered in there. And again, we don't have enforcement, but we make recommendations. We bring in an arborist if there is some issue about, let's say I trim one of my oaks right now in December and we get oak wilt. I can see where the tree board might be interested that oak wilt might not spread across all of the golf courses, beautiful oak trees, and they might want to give me a citation for a nuisance, and that's all in here. You get a citation, and then you can litigate against the tree board. It's all included in here. We don't have to start out the ordinance with the removal of trees. We are authorized not to remove trees, but we are authorized to remove trees on town property that are diseased or a danger to somebody's private property or a danger over the way, all kinds of things. And that's all encompassed in here already.
So this is why I want to go through this, at least to read it and to understand it, because there are several, it's 8 pages, and some of it is, interconnected. So do you have a motion on the table to add, Jane, did you just change it to, and you're talking about nuisance trees? What's the motion?
About diseased and dying trees.
Ma'am, that's already in here.
It's already in there.
Just look at it and you'll see it. So,
Okay, all right, is there a regular maintenance schedule for the trees of the town of Long Beach, as stated in E?
When I asked Tom Dolph about that, if he's with the streets department, he's employed by the city, he said they do it when it becomes a nuisance, but there's not a schedule,
they
we come and
don't.
pick up the leaves.
Because the last time we talked about this, thank you, Janice Brown. The last time we talked about it, the last meeting, I mentioned that there are trees that are being choked by vines. I've brought it to their attention. Those vines will kill the trees. Nothing's been done. So that is part of the reason we're here, is to make sure that things like that eventually get done.
And Jane, I did call Tom about just an incredible amount of vines and things, and they did come out and chop them away from the trees.
Good.
But they're going to grow in the spring. They'll be back
Well,
at it.
yeah,
I could name street after street after street where that's a problem.
Mhm. And I think we'll have to work with the town.
No maintenance going on whatsoever in the town of Long Beach.
there isn't any maintenance at this time. That's
No.
why we're here. That's why we're here.
Why some of the trees have to be removed.
Pardon?
And that's why some of the trees have to be removed.
Well,
And it's addressed.
again, that's covered in the ordinance for diseased trees. Could we please go on to duties and responsibilities, section 4?
We can, but do you want to, there is a motion.
Okay, Mrs.
There
Wall, you have a motion.
Page 1, before we get off page 1, talk to me about the certified forester. That's the recommendation of this tree board ordinance. An independent contractor or city employee retained to address, survey, monitor, and manage the health of city trees and the harm done by exotic invasive species. Do we have such a person?
No, we don't.
And are we going to hire such a person?
We've talked about it. We're meeting now. And when we get to that part, we can talk about it further. Let me finish. What I was told that Tom Dolph from the street department is kind of our forester at this time, and he's going to be taking a course. That's a quote from the town council meeting about a year ago. But the problem with hiring a forester is they're about $40,000 to $60,000. So I don't think at this time approaching the town council to get that wish list, a certified forester, is realistic. Tom Dolph is the closest we have, and he's not certified. Now, that's for maintenance. If we want to, if what we've been doing is when we're called upon to look at trees like the hackberry, like the willow trees at Stop 28 that we went and looked at, or even Stop 1600, when there's work to be done, we do request the input of a forester if we're given the chance to weigh in on a tree. The problem is bigger than that, Mrs. Kroll. The problem is they're not calling us and they're taking down trees. This is just a work in progress. No, we don't have a forester, but one would be nice. One would be nice that went around, looked at the trees, made recommendations, looked at the overhanging branches that might break during a storm and come and cut them. I think at this point, we're just starting to understand what we might or might not be able to do in town.
Do we have to hire a full-time forester?
No.
No,
So-
it's a or city employee.
Mhm.
It's an independent contractor or city
Right.
employee.
Yeah, that's Tom Dolph.
So do we have the name of a forester that we could call if we had a specific area that we wanted him to look at?
Yes. We've called
It
Christian.
should be a certified arborist. I'm not sure why they call it a forester, but typically most cities call it an arborist, and they should have, there are 3 certifications that you can have as an arborist. So
Right. I believe both Christian and the tree man are certified arborists.
Yes. they are
Yeah.
certified to almost the highest level that you
Right.
can be.
Well, it goes on the next page. It says, possessing a degree in forestry or horticulture or landscape architecture, or shall be a certified arborist. So those are the categories they list here. And then under the cover of city employee, that's where we get Tom Dolph coming in and also weighing in.
And
When we've been
what department does Tom Dolph work for?
the streets.
Streets.
Streets?
Mhm.
So when we've been actually informed about a specific tree, we've either gone out and asked Christian or the tree man, as we did with the hackberry. On the other hand, when we went to Stop 28 and looked at the willow trees that they wanted to cut down, we just went out and talked with the guy that cuts trees, gave our opinion, and we basically saved the trees but trimmed the dangerous limbs.
So can I call Tom Dolph and ask him to look at specific trees?
You alone? No, you're part of a committee.
Well, why not? I did as a citizen.
Well, if you're, wait a minute. If you're talking about calling Tom Dolph, you alone, to look at a town tree, that should come before something called the tree board.
Okay, all right, so I understand, because I want to be very specific about this. I'm not trying to be a kind of a thorn in everybody's side here. I really am concerned about this problem. This is very near and dear to my heart, because I love Long Beach, and I've lived there for 51 years or more, and I'm not trying to be an obstructionist here, but I want to know what process we can use to make this town look much more beautiful than it does right now, because it does not look beautiful. And that is my opinion, and it's an opinion that is held by many people. So I want to know what is the process where I can come to the tree board, when I can come to all of you and say, this area, and I'm really not zeroing in on a specific tree. I'm zeroing in on an area that looks like trash. Absolute trash, in bramble and tree growth and overgrowth and trash.
So that's why you bring it to the tree board, Jane.
Tell me the process.
Yeah. You bring it to all of us.
I want all of you to take a drive between Lakeshore Drive and the park at Stop 24. That little street that, I don't remember the name of it, frankly. And you just look on either side of that street, and it looks like junk.
Do me a favor. Email us the address or the strip of street that you want, the name or the location of the property or the land that you want us to look at.
From Lakeshore Drive to Oriole Trail.
Well, you write it, email us so that it's firm.
I will.
I would appreciate that. If you can take pictures with your little phone.
I can't. I'm in Florida now for the season, so I don't do any of that.
Well, we'll take pictures and bring it to you.
I've driven that space.
The what?
I leave most of the land, because I live at Stop 24, but I live inland. But I certainly walk that area from Lakeshore Drive on both sides of the street at Stop 24, going up toward the town center, our private residences, until you get to the business establishment where Mickey Gallus Realty is. There are no vines in front of her business, and across the street is the pizza place, again privately owned, next to the police, the city building parking lot. And so most of that is private land. I don't think we can.
No,
can't do anything.
Some of that, Janice, is not private land.
That's why I'm asking for the specific location, so I know what you're talking about.
But she's saying before you get to Mickey Gallus, the houses are kind of up. And I'm not talking about the Leiden house that's right before you get to Mickey Gallus. I'm talking more the houses right before that on the west side. And those trees and that bramble comes right to the road. And you can't tell that's not some of public property.
Okay, if that's public property, then we can look at it, we can put it on the agenda for next month, and we can make a recommendation to the street department who handles that. That's how we'll get things done. I have no problem with that, and I agree.
I want to get things done like that.
Yeah. Well, we're in agreement. We just have to clarify what we want. And so Jane, if I drive down Lakeshore Drive and I take a right at stop 24, that's where I should start looking at the.
And you go back beyond Bob Rose's property with all the dune grass, and then there are about 3 homes in there, and